Afternoon and welcome to this week's Team Kentucky Update. We're going to start with an update on our actions to respond and recover from the worst flooding event in our history in eastern Kentucky, and then touch on a number of other subjects, including a COVID update where things are starting to look better, and we hope that we are seeing some real positive trends there. With regards to flooding, let me make sure that we continue to be clear that this Commonwealth and my administration is going to stand with these communities in eastern Kentucky until we have not only stabilized, but rebuilt every life, every structure. It's going to take a long time, but that's our commitment. And that's why each week we come with an update of the new steps that are being taken. I'm going to provide an update, a couple pieces of new news, and then our head of emergency management, Colonel Slinkert, is going to talk about one of them in depth. But first, let's go over some of the numbers we always start with. We continue to track 40 fatalities in 6 counties as a result of this flooding. 2 missing persons. They are Vanessa Baker and Nancy Cundiff. They're both from Breathitt County. We really want to find these individuals or bring their family closure. So if you have any information, please contact Post 13, that's KSP Post 13 in Hazard, at 606-435-6069. Looking at water outages, all drinking water services are now operational. 32 service connections inside Breathitt County are without water. They're still working to repair those. 330 connections are under a boiled water advisory. Some progress. The village of Buckhorn has lifted a portion of their boiled water advisory. If you had seen the damage that was there, the fact that this is already being lifted in part is great news. And the part being lifted includes the Buckhorn Lake State Park Lodge, where we've got a lot of people, where we're providing shelter. 4 wastewater systems still not operational. Those are Fleming Neon, Millstone Alternative. Both of those are in Letcher County. And then Buckhorn Elementary and High School in Perry and Robinson Elementary in Perry. We're continuing to shelter 331 individuals in our state parks. 170 are at Jenny Wiley, 137 are at Buckhorn, and 24 are at Carr Creek. We're also helping to shelter 17 individuals in 6 hotels across eastern Kentucky. Total payout by FEMA to individuals and household program, now more than $71 million. Total valid applications received, 14,610. Total applications approved for some level of assistance, now 7,610. As a reminder, 13 counties have been approved for individual assistance, 20 counties for public assistance, and now 5 counties for direct temporary housing assistance. Any survivor has any questions, you can either call FEMA at 800-621-3362, or better yet, go to a disaster recovery center. Let's put them up. There are 6 that are still open. They are in Breathitt, Clay, Knott, Lee, Letcher, Perry, and Pike. Please check on their hours, but these are open each and every day. I was at the Knott County site, able to talk to the FEMA representatives that are there as well as others just this week. Okay, a couple of new legal actions that have been taken since last week. First, on September 15th, we made a request for FEMA to extend the registration period for individual and household assistance for an additional 30 days. This is what our congressional delegation just came back with yesterday in giving us full support and full bipartisan support for. And then on September 17th, FEMA approved our request to activate what's called the Community Disaster Loan Program for Kentucky. This is a program that provides operational funding to help local governments that have incurred a significant loss in revenue due to a major disaster or has or will adversely affect their ability to provide necessary municipal or county services. Interested local governments should reach out to FEMA representatives to apply. We are sending this to those local governments. Their contact is Martha Castro, and we'll get them her email. And then on September 21st, FEMA approved direct temporary housing assistance for Floyd County. Update on bridges. Right now, we believe we have 854 impacted bridges. 736 have been assessed for damage. 118 still in the process for assessment. Transportation confirms eligibility and completes a cost estimate before submitting to FEMA for approval and to fund emergency repair. We submitted 149 of these bridges to FEMA, and 40 thus far have been approved for emergency repair funding. Debris removal. My goodness, those that haven't seen the debris removal, it is incredible. We saw the same thing in Western Kentucky. Remember, we showed you the before and after pictures of Dawson Springs the other day, but just driving some of these routes that were the hardest hit, it looks like a totally different place. I stopped, and I think we've got a video, not today, but that we're going to put out at that same bus barn that we stopped with the president, where those buildings had been hit hard, buses had been pushed through them, still stuck in it. Now, completely clean, the whole site. So a lot of good work going here. And what that does is it picks up that chaos and it drives it out of town, it drives it out of the county, and you start seeing that there is a tomorrow, and we don't have people living in the midst of wreckage. So helpful for new starts. So another 523 loads of debris were removed Wednesday from both right-of-way and waterways. That's 7,928 tons. What we have done through Wednesday now is remove 225,253 tons of debris. That is a lot of debris. It's now well over $30 million worth of work that's been done. Okay, so today, debris removal enters a new phase, and I want to make sure I describe this correctly. So crews are beginning to remove and collect abandoned cars and trucks that came to rest on the public right-of-way or in waterways, and which are blocking access to a public use area or which will pose a threat to infrastructure. So I want to be clear that in debris removal, they're not going to private residences and removing cars that have been impacted. These are vehicles that are in right-of-ways that could impact more flooding, that are preventing the public from accessing different areas. So vehicle managed sites have been designated so far in 5 counties, and that's where these vehicles are going to be temporarily stored, because these are people's cars and trucks. They might not ultimately want them back, but they need to know where they are and how to go through that process. So the counties where we have sites are Breathitt, Clay, Floyd, Knott, and Letcher, and we're looking for one in Perry. So if you're a vehicle owner, it's really important that you respond if contacted by the Transportation Cabinet. But there are always people trying to steal money from you. We don't want this to be a way that outside groups try to scam our people that have already been harmed. So no confidential personal information will be requested in that notification process. So if you've had a car that's been destroyed, is in a right-of-way, and you get a call asking you for personal information, hang up. Transportation Cabinet will not do that. However, when collecting your vehicle, you will need to present a driver's license or state ID and the vehicle title or registration. As a reminder, you can go to the Disaster Recovery Center to get those at no cost replaced. We get that you likely lost any and all of that, and that's why we waived all of the fees and have the resources at the Disaster Recovery Center to help. More information about the Vehicle Recovery Program will be on our website, governor.ky.gov/flood resources, and that's where we have all types of resources to help. An update on the team, Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund, now 37,000 plus donations, $9.7 million brought in. We've dispersed $3.653 million of that. We've actually dispersed $3,653,500. They break down like this: $400,000 covering the 40 funerals of the 40 individuals we lost. No, that meant the families didn't have to go through any reimbursement process. They could just grieve without that additional burden. We've also now approved and are sending 6,507 checks for $500 for individuals that were approved of any amount of individual assistance from FEMA. That totals $3,253,500, and that will grow as more people are ultimately approved by FEMA. So again, as long as you get through that individual assistance process and qualify for $1 coming from FEMA, this fund is going to be there to provide $500 of assistance. We have a couple of new donors this week that I want to recognize, and the first came from the Kelly Clarkson Show. They provided a donation of $20,000 to the Team Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund. The donation was sent in honor of Nathan and Crystal Day of Knott County. With the help of his wife, Nathan saved the lives of 9 people, including 5 children. 2 of the 9 were Nathan's former school teachers. I'm deeply moved by this brave couple and the stories of so many others who faced grave danger rescuing others. I'm still so proud that our National Guard and the National Guard's assisting us, and the state police and Fish and Wildlife and all different emergency rescue teams rescue 1,400 plus Kentuckians that are here with us today because of their bravery, but even more were rescued by their neighbors who risked their lives to help their fellow human being. It is a great testament to our humanity as Kentuckians and how much we care about one another. I also want to thank Representative Randy Bridges and the Kentucky Moose Association, which made a donation of $53,265 to the Team Western Kentucky Tornado Relief Fund to continue to help support our efforts there. Update on travel trailers. Still sitting with about 250 travel trailers in Eastern Kentucky. From last week, we have 17 additional households that we are housing through that program. That's 38 additional individuals. Now, the best number that's up here is one that most people might not think of, and that is the transitioned out. When people transition out of the travel trailer program, it means they have found more permanent housing. We watched this in the West. That's a really good sign when we are seeing folks come out. Excited how we got Letcher County up and running and online. Hoping to see some improvement in Perry County here soon. We continue to have additional access to travel trailers. Our challenge, our locations, utilities, safe places to put them. So today's additional news is my creation of a Council for Community Recovery and Resiliency. Listen, the last 12 months have been full of challenges. And it's clear that we are experiencing an increase in natural disasters with major impacts on our families and our communities. To be better prepared and more resilient so we can respond and recover faster, I'm combining efforts of state, local, and federal actors to be in a permanent group working together, not just to recover from these 2 major natural disasters we have been through, but to prepare for the future. So just before this press conference, I signed an executive order to establish the Council for Community Recovery and Resiliency. This group will consist of members from a number of state and federal agencies that will sit on the council, as well as a representative from both the House and the Senate, as well as local government, health and family services, transportation, infrastructure, housing, and more. When we think about the challenge of rebuilding from something like what happened in Eastern Kentucky, and the fact that we're going to have to rebuild towns and build new neighborhoods, what we have seen is interest and buy-in from federal and local partners. And to make it happen, to be able to access all types of funds, we need a standing group that brings everybody together and shows everybody's commitment to not going anywhere and making sure we get the job in Eastern Kentucky done, but then we are ready for whatever else is coming our way. With the support from Kentucky Emergency Management and Military Affairs, this group will meet and provide leadership and guidance for community recovery and resiliency planning across the Commonwealth. So I'd like to introduce Kentucky Emergency Management Director Jeremy Slinker to tell us a little bit more.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. I'll first start with saying my appreciation to the governor for starting and enacting this council. It'll be so important to our next steps as we recover from this disaster. As the governor stated, we have to accept the fact that we're going to face more frequent disasters with more intensity. And once we accept that, we know we have to be ready for that. We have to be resilient. We have to be stronger. So again, this council will provide that entity, as the governor stated, that we can all come together with our resources and our funds and our expertise and sit down in the same room or at the same table, and to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts, but amplifying efforts, and as well in making sure that nothing's left on the table. As you know, if someone doesn't know there's an issue, they're probably not applying a solution to it. So it makes sure that everyone involved in the recovery efforts are on the same page, working the same direction, into the same goal. Collaboration. That's the most important part of this. As stated, this will be made up of all your state entities, agencies, departments, and divisions that are currently actively working in recovery, and as well as our federal recovery support functions that are also actively working in recovery as we speak. This will be a collaborative effort with our local long-term recovery groups and our local long-term or local recovery coordinators that are out in the communities that are initiating the recovery efforts as well. So we're very excited about having this entity that will come together and share all of what we're doing at one time, and then have those conversations and those meetings to discuss how we combine efforts, how we combine funds, how we attack a challenge as a coordinated team versus an individual agency or department. So we're very excited about this opportunity. Ultimately, the end result is quicker recovery. We know we hear the word long-term recovery used a lot, and we do accept that that the next phase takes a while. Construction takes a while, but there is the fastest we can long-term recovery as well. And this council will provide us the ability to expedite those recovery efforts much faster than we'll be doing before, because it'll cross out those communication lines that sometimes are challenging to get through. There'll be no silos. There'll be nobody working alone. We'll all be working toward the same efforts and coordinating that together. But most of all, it's there to support our local communities that are impacted. And then once we help them recovery, and in that process of rebuilding, the council is going to help them rebuild more resilient, stronger, more prepared for the future. Because again, we have to accept that we have a higher frequency and higher intensity disasters in these times. Communication in any endeavor is always the most challenging event when you have multiple agencies or multiple people working on it. This council breaks down those communication barriers where we can all communicate more effectively than ever before, and to make sure, again, that we all are working toward the same goals and the same results, and making sure we're not duplicating any efforts, and every resource and every expertise is applied to every challenge and problem that we have in our communities. So we'll share our resources, we'll share our knowledge, we'll share our expertise, and fix whatever that may be. But this council is definitely a huge step forward in the recovery process. It gives those that are out working, those independent nonprofits that are looking for someone to partner with, this council is who they'll partner with. And we'll gladly bring those in that can provide extra resources and provide good results to the communities. So it provides that as well. So the Council for Community Recovery and Resiliency will support our local communities and identify resources for local disaster recovery coordinators and plan for the future that our neighbors and communities deserve. So again, appreciate the executive order, and I look forward to actively getting going at tomorrow's interagency recovery coordination meeting. Will be a good start to get it going. Thank you, Governor.
And just to give you a flavor of how this does bring federal partners to the table on a daily basis instead of just a response, there'll be sitting members of FEMA, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, U.S. Department of Congress, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and U.S. Department of the Interior. In many ways, this comes out of an enormous meeting we had where admittedly I asked for anybody from the federal or state or local governments that had programs that could help to all come in one room and then put out the call and the mission that this can't be one where you just say, oh, I might have a program that could help. You've got to start developing your programs for the mission of rebuilding and preparation for whatever might hit us next. Also, we believe that this is going to be really helpful on a federal funding side and what will help be a vehicle to bring in new and different funding. All right, gas prices. Gas, in good news, gas continues to drop in Kentucky. Now, today is the first day in about 99 days, I believe, that it has gone up in the United States, but it continued to drop in Kentucky. Our average price is now $3.25, while the national average is $3.68. So we remain about 43 cents lower than the national average, according to AAA. While gas has thankfully continued to drop here, and while we are having unprecedented economic success that's going to bode well for the future, I do want to continue to acknowledge that I know inflation is continuing to make it hard on our families at the end of the week or at the end of the month. So a couple reminders on steps that we've taken. In February, I froze the rate on vehicle property taxes for 2 years. That's saving Kentuckians $340 million. And then I filed an emergency regulation that prevented gas from increasing because of the state gas tax. I will say, as governor, it is really hard, if not impossible, to impact inflation by yourself. But had I not frozen our gas tax, it was going to cause your gas to go up. That action saved Kentuckians at least $35.4 million. On top of that, declared a state of emergency and activated the state price gouging laws in relation to gas prices. But with the cost of food and gas still being higher than we would like to see and costs of other things going up, I want to once again remind people of some programs we have that can save you some dollars. That's everything from the Healthy at Home Eviction Relief Fund and Homeowners Assistance Fund, whether you rent or whether you own. These are funds that can help you if you are struggling at the end of the month. There's the Affordable Connectivity Program. If you qualify for it, let it pay part of your internet bill so you can use those dollars for other things. The Child Care Assistance Program, Community Action Councils, prescription drugs, far too expensive, hoping that recent federal legislation might bring that down in some way. But we have the Kentucky Prescription Assistance Program and the Medicare Prescription Drug Plan costs. Please visit our website, look at those if you qualify. We want to make sure that we can provide that assistance and maybe ease your burden until we can get through what I think is temporary inflation, but know that it is still hard. Last week, talked about our efforts in putting more troopers and more police officers on the streets to battle crime. This week, we're talking about supporting the victims of crime. So it is really important that we catch a perpetrator and we ultimately try to bring justice in that situation. But we also have to care for the people that have been harmed, especially the victims of violent crime. So today we're announcing nearly $23 million in grants to support crime victims through the Victims of Crime Act. Protecting Kentuckians and promoting justice have been a priority of mine since my days as Attorney General when we created the first Survivors Council in this country. This VOCA funding allows us to build on that work and to make sure that at the same time we're seeking justice, we are promoting healing. This year, the nearly $23 million in funds will support 120 programs and projects. Program funding includes child advocacy centers, court-appointed special advocates, domestic violence programs, and sexual assault programs. As of today, the administration has awarded more than $96 million in grant funding through the Justice and Public Safety Cabinet to victim service agencies across Kentucky. So as we address crime in this country, let's make sure that we are not only working to reduce it, but we are there for those that have been harmed by it. All right, some news that we made in infrastructure this week. On Tuesday, I was happy to travel to Floyd County to celebrate some really great news for Eastern Kentucky. Now, when I started running for governor, there were 3 major projects, giant infrastructure projects, that we needed to move forward for the benefit of all areas of this state. Now, one was the I-69 bridge in Western Kentucky. It's going to open up that area, and with the new terminal we're building in Paducah, give it all forms of transportation so that Western Kentucky can compete just like other areas. In Northern Kentucky, it's building that Brent Spence Companion Bridge without tolls. We're now the closest we have ever been as we await response from our grant applications to the federal government. And then it is the Mountain Parkway. The Mountain Parkway is one of the most critical arteries that reaches into Eastern Kentucky. And for years, decades, this is 60 plus years in the making, the Mountain Parkway has suffered from being a 2-lane road most of the way, and or going through some really populated areas where there are safety concerns. People can be pulling out of their driveways and ultimately collisions from people who may be driving all the way across Kentucky. So what we announced this week is that we are beginning the last section of the Mountain Parkway, 13 miles, that'll take it from Salyersville to Prestonsburg. And once complete, the entirety of the Mountain Parkway with the work that is currently underway will be 4 lanes. This is going to be big for public safety. It's also going to be enormous for economic development, because what we often hear from groups that are looking at Eastern Kentucky is they need a 4-lane highway for their trucks, for the logistics to make it work. Every single judge, every single state representative from the area was not only in support, most of them were there. And the biggest news was we chose the route. See, we had 2 options. The first option was to expand it where it currently is between Salyersville and Prestonsburg. That was going to shut down the Mountain Parkway in many ways for years, and it's still an important artery to serve Eastern Kentucky. And the other thing it was going to do is take more housing and land, places people lived on, create more disruption. So what we have done is we have selected what's called the cross-country option, which is going to leave that section of the Mountain Parkway that currently exists open during the entirety of the construction. When we have built this cross-country option, it's also going to look a whole lot more like an interstate, with fewer people pulling on and off in driveways, and an ability to have a higher speed limit and ultimately get you, whether it's from Winchester to Prestonsburg or Salyersville to Prestonsburg, that much faster. The entire Mountain Caucus supported this cross-country route, and through some real work, engineering and otherwise, we believe it can be done at a cost comparable to what we were looking at otherwise, and we can do it nearly as quickly. This is a big deal. We are really excited. It was Governor Burt Combs in 1963 that announced a Mountain Parkway, and that dream will be complete once we get this last section done. Also had some really exciting news about one of the best trails when we talk about our Rails and Trails program that's out there throughout Kentucky, and that's improvements to the well-loved Dawkins Line rail trail. That's a 36-mile multi-use trail that was developed on 1900s area rail line. Today it's used by hikers, walkers, bikers, and more. I'm proud to say my mom, former First Lady Jane Beshear, was a champion for this project. She believed in its vision, and it has attracted so many outdoor enthusiasts and tourists since. So we were able to award a little more than $4.1 million to continue to improve this trail line. Very exciting, especially for people in the area. Next, we have some good news for our economy and our communities. As part of the announcement last month by the federal government, we've been expanding our Better Kentucky plan to include $25 million in grant funds through the federal bipartisan infrastructure law on our Orphan well capping program. What that means is up to 1,200 wells can be capped through this initial grant. This will allow us to make significant progress in reclaiming abandoned mine lands and redeveloping brownfields. The initial grant is going to create 120 new jobs, and it's going to help farmers and private landowners significantly reduce the environmental impact, primarily methane, that these orphan oil and gas wells have caused. Initial capping efforts will prioritize areas with wells prone to leakage, that are hindering land development, that are affecting communities, that are damaging crops, or negatively impacting water sources. Over a dozen Kentucky counties will have these types of wells and will see this type of work. Interested contractors are encouraged to bid through the Finance Cabinet on packages of orphan wells identified by the Division of Oil and Gas. The first 10 contracts have been awarded for roughly $5.3 million last week. These contracts are going to plug 153 wells in Christian, Cumberland, Allen, Davies, Henderson, Lee, McLean, Ohio, Pulaski, and Webster counties. It is really exciting, especially as we look to potentially receive another $79 million for further phases. So something that's going to help our environment, that's creating new jobs, that the oil and gas industry is fully supportive of. This is all of us coming together and doing some good work. Also, as an update to help Kentuckians impacted by COVID-19, we set up that Healthy at Home Eviction Relief Fund. We initially received $264 million in federal funding for the 118 county eviction relief fund. Louisville and Lexington got their own programs. We previously allocated a total of $23.4 million in additional funds to Lexington. Louisville's received $54 million from our program. So we've now received approval from the U.S. Department of Treasury to reallocate about another $7 million to Lexington's program. This was a deadline that was coming up on the state funds. Lexington was the program that could take it, and now it's going to provide more dollars to help folks that are struggling. So Fayette County residents will continue to apply the same way that they have been. To date, we provided nearly $187 million since March of 2021 to help people pay the rent, and that's to over 43,000 households. I want to thank everybody that has ultimately helped this happen, that's helped people stay in their homes at a difficult time. All right, let's talk a little bit about COVID. First, in good news, the new booster, specifically aimed at Omicron, is out there. Last week, Brittany and I both got that booster, as well as my son Will, and Lila will as soon as she's eligible. Wanted to make sure you all could directly see a message from Dr. Stack on the new booster.
Thank you, Governor Beshear, for the opportunity to talk about the importance of immunization as we enter the fall and winter months. So as everybody knows, I think now, there are new boosters out for COVID-19. The boosters have two elements to them now, some of the original virus and also some of the BA4 and BA5 versions of the Omicron variants of COVID-19. These vaccines are the exact same technology that has been used all along, and they are also the exact same ones that have been used to immunize hundreds of millions of Americans. And in fact, there's been more than 612 million doses of vaccine given for COVID-19 in the United States alone since the start of having those vaccines available. This is just like with the flu shot. Every year we update the flu shot to try to get the proteins that are most likely to be in the virus that year. And it builds on the exact same science and technology. So they're well proven, very highly safe, and very effective and well tolerated. I just got my Pfizer last week and tolerated that just fine. The governor got his a couple weeks before that, and we've both done plenty well with these. I urge you to please go out and get your COVID-19 booster. Anyone 12 and older is eligible. Children 12 and older can get Pfizer, and adults 18 and older can get Moderna. There's a lot more Pfizer available at the moment right now than Moderna. Either one is perfectly fine, and you are allowed to mix and match just fine. So I've had 3 Modernas followed by 1 Pfizer. I think the governor has essentially had Moderna all along. You can do a variety of combinations and it works just fine and should still keep you well protected. I will give you a little more statistics. If you look on our website on the data tab, you can see in the chart pack that we update every week that you have a 13-fold lower risk of dying from COVID-19 if you're vaccinated than if you're not. And you also have about a 3-fold lower risk of getting infected with COVID if you're vaccinated than if you are unvaccinated. So folks, it's an important choice. It's your choice, but the vaccines are widely available. If you go to vaccines.gov, you can put in your zip code and it'll tell you what product you're looking for, where the closest locations are. And that's what I did, and I scheduled an appointment at a pharmacy that was right down the street from my home. It was effortless, and I was in and out in less than 15 minutes. So I encourage you to do that. And while you're there, please consider getting the flu shot. The flu still kills tens of thousands of Americans every year. If you go in and get yourself protected against both of those illnesses at the same time, you'll help keep yourself safe, your family and loved ones safe. You'll help keep all of us safe. So thank you very much, folks, and thanks for going out and getting your boosters and your flu shots.
All right, let's go over some of the other COVID data. The top line is, it at least looks like we are starting to see a decline in the spread of COVID throughout Kentucky. First, let's look at the map. A whole lot better than it was last week, even though Eastern Kentucky still continues to be in the red. But this is the most green that we've seen in several weeks, and we'll be watching tonight when the federal government puts out their update to see if we continue to improve. When we look at the cases, the stair-stepper chart, remember now with at-home tests and the rest, this is a less effective tool in describing where we are, but certainly we've always had a peak and then thankfully a decline. As we look over the last several weeks, we are at the very least in a plateau, if not in that decline. Now remember, cases have always been a lagging indicator, while positivity rate has been the leading indicator. So the next slide is one that looks pretty exciting. Now, we'll need to wait until next week, but that drop in the positivity rate is pretty significant. That's now been dropping at least 3 weeks. And so we certainly hope, and we're probably a week away from being able to say that we are seeing less spread of COVID throughout the Commonwealth. Of course, what lags positivity and cases is hospitalizations. And even those look like they are starting a downward trend. Again, it's probably just a bit too early, but by next week, we hope that this trend continues and that we would be able to confirm it. ICU usage takes a little bit longer, but again, we are certainly down from the peak of this surge, and ventilators have stayed pretty low this entire time, given how this variant is different from the past ones. So, listen, we've heard in the last, week and a half, the head of the WHO say the end's in sight. We heard some real positive comments from the president. Make sure to get out there, get boosted, get this new booster. It looks like we are headed in a really good direction, and I certainly hope and pray that it's not just a lull before we go into something different. I know everybody out there wants to move past COVID. It's taken so much from us. It's taken so many people from us. It's killed more Kentuckians in World War I, World War II, and Vietnam put together. It's been the third leading cause of death, and it's given cancer a run for its money. It's been so impactful that it has lowered the life expectancy of Americans and of Kentuckians by years. So we're hoping we're in the last stretch or the last chapter of this pandemic. All right, now for today's Team Kentucky All-Stars, our Blue Ribbon Schools and our Teachers of the Year. This is an Education First administration, and we will always value the incredible work of our schools and teachers here in the Commonwealth. Helping a child discover a love for reading or helping them realize their talents as an artist, leader, or whatever path they choose, our educators do more than just teaching subjects. They change lives. That's why I want to name Kentucky's Teachers of the Year first as the Team Kentucky All-Stars, and then we'll talk about those schools that now you already know. Our Elementary School Teacher of the Year is Kelly Gates of Pride Elementary in Hopkins County. She is in the red. Our high school teacher of the year, Amber Sargent of Woodford County High School. She is in the green. And a special congratulations to middle school teacher of the year and our Kentucky teacher of the year, Mandy Perez of Crittenden County Middle School. It was such a special morning that we got to do these honors. Incredible to have a rotunda full of educators here once again after so many years. So we even put together a short video so that you could feel a little of the goodness and the positivity of these amazing people.
I love what I do. I love kids, and I love teaching. There's a difference between wanting to be the best in the world and wanting to be what's best for the world. And I know that each of us wake up every single day and we walk into our classrooms and we do what's best for our children. And that is my focus, and I know that's your focus. And I know that our kiddos appreciate us every single day in what we do. The kiddos that are watching right now at home, I love you guys, and we did it. Thank you.
Really special. And in addition, 7 Kentucky schools were named 2022 National Blue Ribbon Schools. This achievement is based off exemplary academic performance and progress in closing achievement gaps. We're also naming them Teen Kentucky All-Stars. They include Fancy Farm Elementary School in Graves County School District, Samuel Woodville Elementary School and Fort Thomas Independent School District, Frankfort High School and Frankfort Independent School District, right here where we are today, Cairo Elementary School in Henderson County School District, St. Francis of Assisi School at the Archdiocese in Louisville, St. Therese School in the Diocese of Covington, and Long Branch Elementary School in the Boone County School District. Thank you to all these schools, but to every school and every educator that's out there, that's endured so much, but pushed through every challenge we faced, whether it's helping our kids continue to learn through COVID, or welcoming them back into a school that may have been underwater at one point, to providing them the services to deal with the trauma of a tornado ripping your home away from you. Thank you for everything you do. We love you. We need you. And we are grateful to you. So with that, we'll open it up to questions. We have 2 journalists here in person. We'll start with Tom Latek.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, sir. University of Kentucky Cannabis Research Center is firing up right now. What's the status of your task force on medical marijuana, and what do you expect to have something from them that you might be able to act on?
So I have just received this morning an initial report from the medical cannabis advisory team that we put together. It's based on the expertise of the individuals that include doctors and pharmacists, as well as advocates, and then those that personally have gotten relief from the use of medical marijuana or medical cannabis. It's also based on the input of meetings that were conducted all across Kentucky, because we were committed to listening to the people of Kentucky, which parts of the General Assembly have refused to. With that information, we'll be making final determinations on actions that we could take, but there will be some actions forthcoming. Joe Sonka.
Mr. Governor, the Labor Cabinet Secretary said in a meeting last week, the new unemployment system website upgrade and revamping could take 3 to 4 more years. A lot of people, that's hard to wrap their head around. It needed to take 3 or 4 more years after everything was passed over here. So, could you explain to people why it is going to take that long to get a new website up, and in response to anyone who would say that this is all happening under your administration and you're ultimately responsible for this?
So let me talk about that, but let me start by saying it's not a website. It's a massive system that has to collect and store information. It has to interface with the federal government. It has to be able to push back against cyber attacks coming from Iran and North Korea and others. when people think of a website, they think of something like ESPN or CNN that they get on that you just have to populate. This is a massive multi-million-dollar system that all states are struggling with, but it's one that has to have better security than existed prior to the pandemic and be able to handle millions of claims and transactions and updates and requests by the General Assembly to change different things. It's much more like a banking system in its scope than it is a website. But let me go all the way back, because this pandemic hit 3 months into my term as governor, and it resulted not just in Kentucky, but everywhere across America with more unemployment claims in a very short period of time than the world had ever seen. And that came after years of gutting and cutting the unemployment office by the General Assembly and Matt Bevin. Matt Bevin had moved or laid off 90 employees that could and should have been processing claims, and he closed 30 of 51 regional offices. When I had people saying, why don't you have an office here or there that I can walk into? It's because Matt Bevin closed 30 of them. The budget for the office had also been cut year after year, decade after decade. And on top of it, this UI IT system is as old, or if not older, than I am. And it was outdated by the time I graduated from high school. So with a gutted workforce, with abandoned offices, a cut budget, and a significantly outdated, if not ancient IT system, our folks have come in each and every day, and they've done their best. Well, the pandemic brought on unprecedented unemployment insurance claims. We took action to increase staff and to process claims more quickly. Now, 99% of the 2020 claims have been completed, and new claims are being processed in a timely manner. We've also added protections inside our unemployment system until we get a new system, keep people's information safe, and to prevent the tens of thousands of fraudulent claims that were flooding into our and other systems that I still believe were direct attacks by foreign actors trying to destabilize us in the midst of this pandemic. We remain committed to ultimately fully repairing this office. Now, there have been decades of damage done to it. It spans years upon years that system can and should have been replaced. Now, I don't have the flexibility that businesses do to just go out and design or pick whoever I want that we think would do a good job. Instead, we have a procurement system that we have to follow, where we receive bids, we score bids, we negotiate a contract, and then at that time, somebody is supposed to sign the contract. The legislature requires us to do that, specifically in statute. We went through that process. We got, and it was a process we had to redo because the original rebuild was not going to have the security that's needed to protect people's personal information. We went through the process. We had the best bidder. We negotiated the contract. Then they went dark, and then ultimately refused to sign. And it appears that some of their officials are having some criminal issues right now. It's a process we have to go through, and we don't have an option but to restart it. We're going to continue to timely process claims that are being filed right now. We're going to do the job of the present, and then we're going to get this thing fixed for the future. But to suggest that over decades, the legislature cut and gutted and underfunded and refused to improve an ancient IT system and then handed it to me in the middle of a pandemic. Listen, there are things we could have done better, but this fault goes a lot further than this current administration. All right, with that really long answer done, Austin Horn from the Herald Leader.
Thank you, Governor. Economic development and announcements regarding companies opening up shop in Kentucky have become kind of a central messaging theme for your administration. I'm wondering if you could elaborate on how these developments are because of work that your administration and cabinet have done specifically and aren't just the result of the market or our projects and developments that would have happened anyway under other administrations.
You know, it's only, I think, because there's an election in November and next year that people are trying to fight over credit for economic development. But listen, the numbers don't lie. Last year, we had a record $11.2 billion of new private sector investment in Kentucky. That's with us normally averaging, before I came into office, about $5.5 billion. It was a record 18,000 new jobs last year at the second highest wage we've ever seen. It's having the lowest unemployment rate, or close to the lowest unemployment rate, in the history of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Fewest people on unemployment since the year 2000. Two largest budget surpluses we've ever seen. Largest growth in revenue in 31 to 41 years. Listen, those are really good for Kentucky. And it's only because others' personal ambition is not helped by the fact that we're breaking records that they want to tear that down. Each of these companies that we announce are companies that have come to us and that have said, we want to do a project, and we could do it anywhere in America. And in every single project we compete, we have to take their request and show them a site that has the acreage, that does or could have the utilities. We've got to reach out and work with the power and the water and the other companies and bring them on board on what type of package that they are going to offer. Then we have to negotiate an incentive package with them that is competitive with other places. Then we present a workforce development proposal and concept on how we are going to bring people to ultimately work in their facilities. And oftentimes we bring in the local school district, the community colleges, and others. But everything I'm talking about right now is an executive branch action. Listen, I'll share credit with anyone and everyone. The legislature passed that Senate bill in the special session that helped us have a program that got forward, that got that $5.8 billion facility. And I'm happy to give credit there. They provided us extra dollars with infrastructure. That's really helpful. They've provided 2 new pots of economic development money, and that helps too. But at the end of the day, when you have a $5.8 billion project, the company wants the governor to look them in the eye and say, we'll get it done, and we'll work with you hand in hand. And we've done that. But listen, what I care about is that my kids are going to grow up in a Kentucky where they have opportunities that most of us could have never dreamed about. We're the electric vehicle battery production capital of the United States of America. We're becoming the agri-tech capital of the United States of America. You look at the jobs in metals, in logistics. You look at how many new jobs we're getting in research and development in these companies. That we've got the largest investments in the history of Ford and Amazon. We've announced the largest investments in Christian County, Todd County, Hardin County, and so many more. What I care about is the future, and that generations of Kentuckians are going to have such incredible opportunity. And what we can't be doing right now is trying to run down our state at a time when people are looking at us and they're excited about us and they want to invest in us. All right, Melissa Patrick, Kentucky Health News.
Hi, Governor. So, as you well know, that the pandemic is over. I'm just curious, what do you think about that? And are we truly on the other side of it?
Lord, I hope the pandemic is ending. Certainly, we've had statements from the WHO and the president. I mean, obviously, if you look at the charts, COVID is still here. It does look like it's on the decline in Kentucky, and I hope we are near the end. Cases worldwide are dropping, or deaths worldwide are dropping significantly, and I hope they've got some scientific research that backs that up. I certainly hope that they are right, and I'm looking forward to a continued decline here in Kentucky. Stan Ingold from WEKU with our final question.
Thank you, Governor. Does the state grant private contractors the ability to go onto private property to remove flood debris, even if the property owner doesn't want people on their land? And if so, do property owners really have any ability to stop things like tree removal from their property?
I'm gonna ask Colonel Slinker to come up and address that question.
Okay, a great question, and thanks for the opportunity to explain. So generally, the answer to your question is no, there is a private property debris removal process to remove storm-generated debris from private property. But ongoing, as you've heard, is there's waterway and stream debris removal going on now to remove hazardous and dangerous debris out of the waterways. One of those mentioned today was cars. Other things are entire homes, decks, building materials, a large amount of vegetative debris that is built up around our bridges. So if anything is endangering our infrastructure, if it's endangering the environment, or most of all endangering lives, then we have authorities under the Division of Water and under 39A as emergency management to go in and remove hazardous things from the waterways. So at this time, someone may see someone cross some private property to get to that waterway and stream waterway under those authorities and remove that hazardous debris. But they are not going on to someone's private property and removing their debris off of their property. It is just getting those things that are dangerous in the waterways where that is occurring now. The other debris operation ongoing at this point is right-of-way debris. That's normal with any storm. So that is where they do not get off the right-of-way and just pick up debris that's been pushed to the edge of the roadway. And private property debris will be a later process, not much later, but post these two debris removal endeavors. I would encourage anyone that has a question about whether someone's too close, please reach out. There's a debris hotline. I don't have that currently now, but we can get that to you. And reach out to the transportation cabinet and express those concerns of about a particular point of debris. And I know they'll be glad to answer that or address any issues with the contractor that you may have. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much. And we'll be back next week.